You said something in your talk about if you will just not try to read the situation too completely, it will reveal itself to you if you just allow it to happen. And the story that came right to mind was the day we were at the nursing home and you were doing the talk while we were in seminary.
Yeah. This was an interesting thing. We went to give this talk, and the young folks we were talking to were 90, and then they were upward from there, and they were in wheelchairs and
falling asleep.
The toughest audience you could ever play for. And it was just so hard. You weren't getting any audience response. It's very hard as a speaker to do that. And we had a couple of women come with us who were honky-tonk piano players. I mean, they were great. And they were playing some really spiritual...
They were singing Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace, and really belting it out. And there was this one guy that was going like this. And I thought, oh my God, he's just really not enjoying this. And he had the whole time they were playing, he had his hands over his ear. And then I went and gave my little talk, which nobody listened to anyway, but I had a good time.
This is practice for ministers.
Yeah. And I went over to the man afterwards and I said, I noticed when they were playing the music, you had your hand over your ears. Did the music bother you? He said, oh no. He said, all my life I played the saxophone and I was just playing my music in my head. Who got the lesson?
Yeah, who got the lesson today?
Who got the lesson today?
Well, we had another incident like that right here tonight, which just fascinates me. Sally Ann Dalton drove down from Port Richey on her motorcycle, which has a sidecar. And she came in and had a helmet, and she had a guest helmet, and she asked if anybody wanted to ride, and David's teenage son, Joe, said yes, he would like one, and he got in, and she put the helmet on him, and she took off, and she expected him to really be enjoying it, and he was playing his video game. And, nobody understands teenagers anymore, and he was just very involved in this, and she thought, I wonder why he wanted the ride anyway. And then she said, Sally Ann, pivot. Instead of getting annoyed, she said, I love riding the motorcycle. And in a minute or two, he looked up and he seemed to get more involved. And she said, look out, there's going to be a bump. And they had a pretty nice time before they were through. But she said the best part for her was she later heard him telling his mother about it. And he said, it was so cool. I was riding along and I was texting all my friends telling them I'm riding in this neat motorcycle. So we live in a different world than the other person, whoever the other person is, and particularly if there's a vast difference in age. In John's case, this man was 30 or 40 years older than he was. In this case, Joe was a number of years younger than Sally Ann. The communication is completely different, and yet each was getting through and doing something wonderful for the other and didn't even realize it. So they were both so related, I thought we ought to, they really made your point, those two stories.
Well, David, you got any questions for us?
Very good questions for you.
Don't be too rough. Remember, next week you get the questions.
Yes, this might be the last evening of the regular program, but you're not going to get off easy on questions.
What's the title of the talk you're doing next week?
Next week
Yeah.
is Purpose and Passion, Rocket Fuel for Radically Happy Life.
Ooh, sounds like fun.
Yeah, you heard Neil Donald Walsh's, what he had to say about there's no blackboard in the sky with your purpose written on it. Well, that's really exciting because that means we get to pick what it is. But you've learned some amazing tools over the last weeks from the Reverends. And if you want to just add a little more punch to it, have a purpose, a quest that you're really, really passionate about, that you're really excited about. Now we'll take you one more level. So maybe you have one and you want to get it clarified a little bit further, or maybe you really don't have one, but next week that's what we're going to do. So I hope that you come out. We're going to have fun.
I think I'll come because I want to know what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Don't worry, sweetheart, you're never going to grow up.
Thank you, dear, for that wonderful compliment.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, here we go. Would you go over the steps of pivoting again?
Okay. Well, pivoting is first recognizing that there is something that you don't want in your mind, and you recognize that by the negative feelings you're having. And then once you've discovered that you need to pivot, the first step is to do what we call a freeze frame. You just look at the whole situation and make it absolutely still, like nothing's happening. Now this is in your mind, nothing's happening, and nothing is happening. So you just hold that picture and sort of, if you will, in your mind, step back from it and then make a choice. You say, do I want to hold on to this thought? It feels terrible. Or would I like a better thought? So what's a thought that's a little bit better than this? You just got your bank statement and they bounced a check, okay? And you see that, and you just get angry. There was enough money in that account, and you start to go in this, and then you just, oops, isn't this interesting?
It could be worse.
It could be worse. They could have bounced 2 checks. Or, well, I've got money in the savings account I could transfer over. You start to think better thoughts until you feel good enough that you can sit down and find out what the problem. Why did they bounce it? Maybe another check somebody else gave you bounced, and that's what caused it. You don't have any idea what caused it until you work on it. And when you find out it was someone else's check that bounced it, and now you have another opportunity to pivot. You start getting angry at that person. So you say, whoops, freeze the picture, step back, do I want to be angry? Well, I could be. And by the way, you can be angry if you want. It's a choice, as long as you're choosing it and not letting it go on automatically. So you say, well, no, I don't know why this happened, but I'm sure I can find out. That's a little bit better thought. I'll maybe give them a call. As soon as I get my energy down to a nice level, I'll give them a call. And you work through that until you feel okay, at least okay. And then you take whatever action you need. And you know, you don't have to call them that minute. You could wait until you felt a lot better. And what's interesting, after you do this a while, that the universe works on your side. You call them right then and they're not home, and boy, is that a blessing. Because it gives you more time to change your thinking. So that's the basic idea. First, stop the action in your mind. Stop it. And then look at it and make a decision that you want a better thought. And then begin the turning process of thinking a little bit better thought.
Why are our bodies set or programmed to age within approximately 100 years, and how can we have control of this? Can we reprogram?
In the long run, yes, I think we could. According to the biologists, our bodies are designed for 150 to 200 years, and very few of us live that long.
And how cute will I be?
Some of us may want to die young. I've tell you what, I can remember a woman who was 102 who was pretty darn cute for any age. But you can reprogram, but by the way, you don't say, okay, I've been living the lifestyle I've been living for 62 years, and now I'm going to reprogram and I'm going to be 21 tomorrow. That isn't going to happen.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Got to go through all that again?
If I wouldn't go back to 21. Maybe 45, but not 21. What you do is you say, I want a better body, a younger body, a more supple body. You describe what you want in your body. Not to be younger, because you're not going to get any younger. You might get more supple. And you don't have to rush down to the gym and take exercises either. That may be a decision you make, and that's okay. But what you want to say is, what do I want my body to be like now? How would I like it to be a little bit better tomorrow and the next day and the next day? And if you're open, and if that's your focus, and you're not upset every time you look in the mirror and say, oh, look at that body. If you get upset when you see yourself in the mirror, you've got to change. You've got to accept. You've got to allow what your body is right now. It's the very first step if you're going to change it. If you've got too much weight, you have to accept your body as it is now. You have to love your body as it is now without trying to change it. And then say to yourself, I'd like a thinner body, okay? So what am I going to do? Well, I've tried dieting, and when I diet, I lose weight, and then I stop dieting and I gain the weight back. You simply decide that you're first comfortable with the body you have, and that there are certain eating habits, and you know what they are. All of you are dietitians by this time. You've been on so many diets. You've read all these books about carbohydrates and vitamins and all the other things. You already know everything you need to know. And the mechanics are very simple. Eat less food and do more activity. Yeah. And the other one that most people don't think is reduce the stress in your life. Stress adds weight. So you start working on all of them, not just losing weight, but all of those things. Reducing your stress. Saying to yourself, I want to eat healthy foods. And if you need to read about healthy foods, then do that. If you know what they are, start doing it. But don't go on a crash program. Don't say, well, I'm going to cut out this and this and this. I'll never have another piece of pie or whatever. You can be very healthy having a great big piece of chocolate cake as long as you don't do it every day. You can have it once a month and have it, or you can have anything you want in your eating regimen. Don't ever go on a diet again. Simply change your eating regimen. But first, before you do that, change your mind.
And your fear of aging, if that's what it is, will improve greatly when you just begin to recognize and be grateful for what a miraculous thing your body is and how indestructible it has really been so far, however long that is. I mean, you know what you've done to it. You've fried it in the sun. You've put, if you're a female, you've pushed it into pointed toe shoes. You've done over-exercised or under-exercised or overeaten or under-eaten. Or I always tell everybody I've been everything from emaciated to immense. So, I've done a lot of things with my body over the years. It's a miraculous thing. And when you begin to view it as a miraculous thing, for however long it has existed and for each new minute of life that it gives you, then it's easier to begin to make the changes you want to make. First of all, start appreciating yourself and your absolutely amazing body tempo.
Guidance, in the example of guidance that you use, is the you, spirit, and the I, the mind, who is dancing?
God, you and I.
As in my belief, spirit, my patterns?
Well, to answer that question, we're going to have to find out who you are. Are you the body? Are you what some people call the soul? Is the soul in the body? Is the soul God itself? In one of Lauren's presentations, we talked about this that's in you as the eternal life force, the elf. There is no place where God is not, including in you. Jesus used the words, the kingdom of heaven is within you. In fact, in the book of Thomas, which didn't make it to the Bible because it has too much truth in it.
Little editorial comment
yeah,
there.
he makes this statement. The kingdom of heaven is within you and around you. In other words, it's every place. You are in the same place that you were when you were born. In the same place. You're just watching a different movie. And it's the movie you want to change, and you don't. If the movie's got something you don't like, you don't go out there with a big eraser and erase the screen. You change the film. You change what's being projected. And that's all you have to do. People think that eternity is a long time. Not true. Eternity is the absence of time. Now, when you are in the present moment, you are in eternity. And if you're thinking about the future or the past, you're someplace else. So literally, time doesn't matter. We've made it matter, but it does not matter.
And God, you and I are all the same thing. You
One-
only dance when you discover that. There was a metaphysician from Unity School named Ed Rabel, very famous teacher and a very stern teacher, and he had quite a reputation. John had actually taken some classes from him about 10 years before I came into the Unity movement, but I had only heard about him and was very thankful that I didn't ever have him as a teacher.
He's a fine metaphysician.
By the time I got to Unity School, Ed was elderly and he had had a stroke and been in a nursing home for quite a while, and he got better enough to come out and live independently. And they invited him back he wasn't well enough to teach a class, but it was a question and answer session with Ed Rabel. And I was just fascinated to see what this man was like. And so John and I went to the class, and the young students, young in that we had not experienced Ed in his heyday, were hesitant to ask him questions. You just didn't even know where to begin, and no one was saying anything. And finally, John put his hand up and said, well, Ed, I've heard all this stuff for years, and now I'm in ministerial school, and still when I get a little panicky, I don't know where to go to find God. I don't know whether to pray to God out there or pray to God in here or over there. I just don't. Where is God? Where do I pray? And he said, well, John, why does it make a bit of difference? God is anywhere you look. And I thought, that's how you earned your reputation, Professor Rabel. I finally was then fascinated with everything he had to say, and that was as clear to me as it could possibly be. You don't have to look anywhere for God, just be, and God's right there with you, dancing away.
Did anyone see Dr. Weiss on Oprah the other day? Dr. Weiss?
No.
Many lives, many masters?
Uh-uh.
Yeah. He's a psychiatrist who studies past life regression.
Oh, he was taking somebody through a past life regression. I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
take-
but he gave a great analogy of God being water, which we've heard many times, but he put a new twist on it. He said, we think we're individual, but we're the ice cubes that's in the glass of water. Okay, so God is the water that's everywhere present. We think we're individuals. We're the little ice cubes in there, but we're all made out of the same thing. So I thought that was a great analogy. We have one more question.
Okay.
You ready? Mm-hmm. How many years ago was Row, Row, Row Your Boat written, and by what minister?
What a great question.
Wasn't that Peter?
It could have been Peter or Paul. we
Didn't
don't
he
know.
row his boat?
Yeah. Oh, Peter, row your boat ashore. What's the? I think it was.
I actually meant the one that was the disciple
Yeah.
that
No.
walked to the boat,
Yes. Oh, that Peter. Okay. It's interesting that the Bible doesn't tell you everything that
Michael,
happened.
row your boat ashore.
Yeah, that's right. There were three main leaders of the early. Before it was a church, it was really a movement, and one was, of course, Peter, who was probably the most well known of the disciples, and the other was a man by the name of Saul of Tarsus, who was originally hired to seek out these followers of Jesus and get rid of them, but he had a blinding flash of the obvious on the way to Damascus, and he joined them. And the third unsung hero was Mary Magdalene. A woman was a disciple, and very strong and very powerful. And one of the books that didn't make it to the Bible, in the book of Peter, there's an argument between Peter and Mary wins the argument, which is really interesting for that time, the way women were treated. And so you can really say that the early founding of what became the Christian church was run by Peter, Paul, and Mary. Michael, row your boat ashore. Any more questions?
I think it's more like Puff the Magic Dragon.
We have had a great time with you all. Appreciate and love